All right, so I was scrolling through YouTube looking at the subject of no one wants to work anymore, and I ran into this guy. He's your classic entrepreneur, and he wrote a book on Amazon on how to grow $1 million business. But the whole video is his gripe on how no one wants to work hard anymore. And you think to yourself, this guy even admits in this video that he can't afford to pay high wages. So it starts out by him challenges the work is physically demanding, the turnover is extremely high, there are no employee benefits, there's no incentive structure, there's no way of improving the conditions because it's outside. So whatever temperature it is outside, you're going to have to deal with it, whether it's extreme cold or extreme heat. And the wages are restricted to the ability to attract high quality workers. Now think of that. He doesn't understand why wage limitations restrict the ability to attract high quality workers. And you have to ask yourself, like, where do they find these people? At my job, it's the exact same thing. They ask all the time. It's like, why is there so much turnover? Because the wages that you offer, your limited wages with limited benefits, hard work, leads to people knowing what this job is. In fact, I asked Gen Zero last week, it's like, you know what kind of corporate culture we have here? And he says to me, yeah, it's the toxic kind. And I mean, it didn't take him long before he realized that this place was a mill. And most bottom level jobs are a mill. The turnover, you can't stop the turnover. And that leads to negative reviews on places like, what is it? Is it Glassdoor? Uh, I think it's one of those recruiting sites. And you go and you look up these companies, and they have horrible reviews by people who used to work there. Like if I were to leave a review right now for Insight, the call center place that I worked at, it was awful. It was one of the worst places I've ever had to work in, other than working in retail. I literally transitioned from retail to a call center, and they were just awful jobs with the exact same pay, wage limitations. And you kind of like, you ask yourself, like, what's wrong with these business owners? You want to grow $1 million business while we make $20,000 a year. How is there any incentive for regular workers to be able to feed themselves? And you and then you wonder, it's like, well, why don't they just work hard and put their heads down? Because a lot of people are past that. When you treat your workers like children, and then you wonder why they behave like children, because I've made a lot of videos about this. Act your wage. And so someone like this guy is going to hire someone, let's say he has a 4 year liberal arts degree, not from a grade school, state school, and he wants to hire them for his lawn care service. How much are they going to tolerate of everything that's associated with that job? If they're the more desperation you have in the actual worker, the longer they're going to put up with the conditions that they're being forced into. Lawn care isn't an easy thing to do. I had an uncle when I was in I think I was 14 or 13 tell me, because he had one of these, right? Typical low level minority job, right? So he brought me along for one day. I busted my hump for him, and at the end of the day, he refused to pay me because I was too lazy. And I was like, that's the last time I'm ever going to hang out with this guy. When you show up at a job that treats you like you're absolute scum, right? And that's business owners, corporations, executives. They don't see the value of people. They want you to show up and work really hard for practically nothing. Even my own boss at my current job, the last five managers that I've had, they come to work and they've got this like ideas in their head because when their employees don't work hard or they show up and all of their employees are unmotivated, demoralized, don't like their jobs, and you walk into the workplace and everyone there looks like they don't want to be there. And you have to put up a sign in the break room that says, you don't want anyone showing up to this job that doesn't want to be here. And I would look at the general manager of the Walmart that I looked at when he would say stupid things like that. And I would say to him, do you think anyone in here wants to be here? And he'd look at me and say, they better want to be here or I'll replace them. I'm like, Jesus Christ, these managers, these owners, all of these people, all the job creators, right? They really have an idea of work from a time in which people were either much less intelligent or people cared more. I think people actually cared about doing a good job earlier in time, but as soon as Gen Z showed up in their pajama pants, in their slippers, with their attitude that an 8 hour day is too much work. Now, on top of the 8 hour day, this guy with his lawn service wants you to bust your hump for the minimum wage. So Gen Z got there and they're like, what is this? I think a lot of Gen Z shows up at work right now and thinks, what is this? Where's the place where I can go and take a nap? Or where's the place I can go and meditate? Or when do we start our yoga class? No, hard work and crappy jobs is thankless, it's boring, it's mind numbing, it's repetitive, and what you get out of it at the end of every month is questionable because that job isn't going to provide you with enough money for you to live. And now you're sacrificing yourself for a job that wants you to feel disposable while at the same time pretending or showing up to work like you're the owner. I don't understand when people say things, stupid things like that to poor people. It's like, I want you working like you're the owner. I'm like, if the owner and I are going to trade wages, I'll work like the owner all day long. But if I'm not even going to make it enough so that I can't eat every day, why would you think anyone would do that to themselves? And Gen Zero is the first generation who's shown up at work and said, you know what? This system is broken. We want more time off. We want to travel. We want work life balance. We want a shorter work week, shorter hours, more pay. And the corporations, the executives, the boomers out there are losing their wigs because they can't believe that there's an entire generation of people out there that aren't comfortable with exploitation. There's just kind of look at you like, you want what? And a $500,000 a year salary? Come on, Gen Z. What are you smoking? All right, let's get into our script. The script's kind of strange today. I read a couple of the paragraphs, but let's look at this. So you've heard it a million times, haven't you? No one wants to work hard anymore. They say it like we're lazy, like we're just sitting around scrolling on our phones waiting for a handout. Let me tell you what it's really like. I've been working since I was 16. Fast food, retail, cleaning houses, whatever would pay me enough to keep the lights on. And you know what I've got to show for it? Nothing. But an aching back, empty pockets, and the constant feeling that I'm one emergency away from losing everything. The story of my life. Literally. This program wrote the story of my life. I started working when I was 16 because my mom sold our house and I had no place to live. It was my first experience with being homeless. Welcome to being an adult. You're 16, you're going to have to figure it out. Up until this point, I'd never had a job before, let alone going from living in my parents' house to living on the street, having to figure out how I'm going to live because that's what a lot of young people that I've met, because they're so eager to get out of their parents' house, right? And so they want freedom, they want to be independent, they want their own stuff, right? Well, they get their first job and they realize after they've moved in with friends, right, into a house where they just renting a room with their friends that it's still going to cost more than they could ever make working at the mall. In fact, I remember when I bought my last phone, I was at the T-Mobile store inside of the Arizona Mills Mall. And the girl just looked at me like everything I make working at the T-Mobile store goes to rent. I have nothing left. And my mom told me that I'm not allowed to move back home because she's had another kid since then and there's no room. What are you supposed to do when that happens to you? You figure it out because you don't have a choice. Work is the most destructive thing that you could ever imagine for mental health, for physical health. Coming home feeling crushed like a bug every day because corporate America takes I think corporate America finds it humorous that people can't pay their bills. I really think that they're up there laughing at poor people, looking at what they expect performance wise for what they're willing to pay. Because forcing ordinary people to work for someone like this prince who expects workers to show up, but then simultaneously says there are limited wages here, there are limited hours here, there are limited opportunities here. Because every job that I've been to my entire life has no opportunities. It's the job, and when you're not doing that job, someone else will be doing that job for the less money. That's what I love about, at least so far, my experience with this corporation. Every time someone leaves, the wages drop. And it's not by a dollar or two. I think it dropped $6 an hour the last time I got a new Gen Zero. And I was like, Jesus Christ, who are we going to hire that is going to work for these limited wages? And then my boss looks at me like, it's your fault that we have low retention rates. In fact, we were in a meeting with the vendor one time, and he says to the vendor, we have high turnover in that area. I was like, what you mean is we have limited wages in that area. So, anyhow, let's get on to our next paragraph here. Employers love to complain that no one wants these jobs. But do they ever stop to ask why? Why would anyone want to bust their hump for minimum wage? Just to have their paycheck eaten alive by rent, groceries, and gas. Now, stop and consider that. Bust your hump for a non living wage while an angry business owner looks at you and tells you to hurry up. I ran into this when I worked in retail. It's like you've got a supervisor who's telling you need to work faster. You need to work faster. You need to put more heart into your job. And I'm like, I am here in body only. This job sucks. And when you say things like that, like you don't respect the job, because remember, as I said last week, they think it's a privilege to have a job. And I'll tell you, if it's a privilege to be poor, we're living in an alternative reality where you don't understand that you growing your $1 million business, your annual $1 million small business doesn't mean jack to the guy that's busting his hump outside with the pick and shovel. He's just going to look at you and laugh. They want us to be grateful for scraps. Like we should thank them for the privilege of being overworked, underpaid. But here's the thing, it's not that people don't want to work, it's that we're tired of being exploited, tired of breaking ourselves for companies that see us as disposable. And the first place where people break when they're working at the bottom is mentally. Because when you're like me and you're spending 75% of your monthly income to live in a place where you don't want to live, and you've got hundreds of little roommates crawling all over. I think I've punched three or four of them already today. And so there's little stains where they punched them into the wall because I find it disgusting. And this is all I can afford. And you got this privileged business owner and talking about how you need to come to work to bust your hump. I have no idea what these guys are thinking. Who are they looking for? Just straight up people who got off of a train in the desert and are just looking for anything so that they can eat? Is that who they're looking for? Because they're definitely not looking for Gen Zero. Because here's the truth: if hard work guaranteed success, people like me would be rich by now. But instead, we're drowning. And the ones shouting no one wants to work anymore, they're the same ones who refuse to pay a living wage. They don't want workers. They want robots who don't need sleep, food, or basic human dignity. That's what I've been saying. There's no dignity at the bottom. In fact, humiliation is a standard benefit of working at the bottom. In fact, I was just talking to this uh, about this with the 60-year-old cashier at Kroger's this morning when I went to go get my ground turkey to make my turkey tacos. I said to her, I was at Walmart and yeah, they were making the employees wear antlers on their employee hats. And she said they used to do that here at Kroger's a couple of years ago. Millennials team, do you know what it's like to be 65 years old and being told to put on a humiliating hat at work? And I just looked at her and I rolled my eyes up. It's like they treat people with such amounts of disrespect that I wonder why anyone would come back to a job like that. And then you got this business owner who's like, you know what? If I want you busting your hump outside, the if I ask you to put on a chicken costume so that this is a marketing ploy, right? I ask you to work in a chicken costume while working for the lawn care service, you have to do it. It's your uniform. And I think corporate America will get to the point where it's going to dress up its employees. They already make you wear a humiliating uniform. What what's stopping them from making you put on a chicken costume every day when you get to work? Having your friends, your family, your community all seeing you working inside of a chicken costume. I've actually made this video a while ago, a couple of years ago. Actually, it's been longer than that. I made that video during the pandemic that eventually everyone's going to be in a chicken costume just so that we can get rid of human dignity. So the next time you hear someone say no one wants to work anymore, ask them, why would we want to work barely? Why would we want to work barely to survive? Why would we, when the system is rigged to keep us poor, tired, and stuck, we don't want a free ride. We want a fair chance. I'm not certain if I stopped correctly in that paragraph. It sounded a little rough. We want a fair chance. Remember, this guy's trying to grow $1 million business while he's paying you $20,000 a year. That guy doesn't think about your general safety or health or care about you any more than he does the tool you're carrying around, busting your hump, doing your job with. All you are to that business owner is the tool of production. The proletariat has always been the tool of production. And while the proles don't like this, and they wish that the world was more fair, this is what they get. People who think like this guy. We're not lazy. We're just done with the lies. And maybe it's time they started working on fixing this broken system instead of blaming us for refusing to break ourselves for it. I mean, really, that's where the script ends. ChatGPT never offers any significant insight or offers solutions or thinks anything more other than, you humans are absolutely screwed. When all the evil corporations think like this guy, we want harder work. We want to do more with less workers. And we have limited wages, limited benefits, limited hours, limited everything that human beings need, limited health care, limited food, limited fun, or I'd say no fun. They want no time off. They want people there every day, whether or not you're not even allowed to get sick because a sick worker doesn't come to work and a sick worker needs a healthcare system that doesn't exist because they can't afford healthcare. In a country where you can't afford something, that means it doesn't exist. So when you don't have health benefits, they don't exist. Because just going to the emergency room, because that's where you'd have to go with anything, can devastate you financially for the rest of your life. because that's what it's there for. It's there to benefit the people who have medical insurance, not you who doesn't have it. They don't want you anywhere near it. In fact, there's a couple of years back, I had to go get an X-ray done, and they happened to have my doctor's office was next to the Tempe hospital, and the lady behind the counter told me that they don't let the homeless come into the emergency rooms anymore. And she said they just tell them to go next door to the next door's to the doctor next door. And they're like, but we don't have medical insurance, so they're not going to see us. And they're like, that's not our problem. Just don't come to the emergency room. There's a doctor's office right next door. And they're just like, then they'd show up in the lobby, because I saw this myself, right? I was sitting in the lobby waiting to see my doctor, and a homeless guy walks in and he says, the emergency room told me to come here. She looks at him and says, you don't have medical insurance, so we can't see you here. I was like, oh my God, this system is screwed. Again, a system not created to take care of people, a system designed to go in the opposite direction of caring about people. A system where if you lose your job, you might as well, you know, contemplate crossing over to the other side, because this world was not built for people who don't have good jobs.